All right, guys. So we're on. All right. Yeah. Let me keep track of this because I haven't. Really. So again, the main thing that I'm asking you guys is to take notes, and ask questions. All right. So let's work on the steps of how to follow this. So I wanted to start with these images right here, right, with these drawings. Right. What were these? Huh? So these are the Jacob's house building elevations that we're working here in class. Now, what is something that perhaps is missing? I don't know, in terms of the actual building itself, or you know, um, reality. Right? I don't have photographs. Huh? People, right? People. Yeah, that helps. What else? In terms of recognizing it, perhaps even. Yes, sir. Furniture, right? Some sort of maybe equipment, fixtures, furniture. What else? In terms of really recognizing it, think about maybe materials. What could we do? Steph? Well, think about it this way, right? I mean, what would you do as a kid, right? I mean, when you get, huh? We could add color, right? I mean, we could add color to it. That's the main idea right there, right? I mean, in this kind of drawings and these elevations, how are we able to tell what's closer to us in terms of volumes? Well, in this particular case, right there, without the shade, what were we exploring so far in terms of denoting depth? Line weights, right? So again, this is a case where we're just printing black and white. There's no color, right? We can start using some shading, right? Some grayscale shading, but a very efficient way to communicate, the characteristics of a building is to actually add its colors. And by adding its colors, you get different tones and gradients, which start talking about depth, right? Which starts showing some sort of shadows. Okay, so that's what I want to show you guys today, how to do that. And again, I don't have a 3D model of Jacob's house, but I do have a model that we were using last class, which I started over here. Okay, so while that opens, right, we have this drawing, for example, right, which is part of what we're going to be looking at today. You guys remember this file? Right, this is the one that we were using last week. Okay, which is this guy right here. Okay, so let's talk about your project, right? Your assignment. So you have a 3D model. Now you have objects in space, right, in a digital space. And I just gave you guys a number of requirements, right? So I ask you guys to give me a top view, right, of the model, and then front, right, left, etc. Right? So far so good. And one of the first ways that we have been doing this for your manual, how we've been exporting images. Huh? Clipboard, right? I mean, view, capture, right? Either to file or clipboard. So that's one way, right? What was the different way that we were looking at last class in order to export images? Huh? Was it print? Right. What kind of images were we exporting last class? Renders. Right. We're exporting renders. Right. And again, those were a number of this ones. Right. We're exporting this one. So what do we mean by render, Manny? What are some of the? What do you mean that an image is rendered? Great, beautiful, right? So it shows lighting, right? Which is, you have these shadows right there. It has an idea of the materials, which then also can give us texture. I think we applied some sort of a plastic material right here. There was like gold, glass, and I think another plastic or stucco. Right? So can you guys see that each form has a different, not only form, not only color, but a different material attribute characteristic. See that? Okay. So that is what I mean when I give you guys the requirements, right? It's a render image with project materials. Let's take it one step at a time. So render material with project materials. So, and we're talking about the right views, left views. So I can actually run a rendering for an elevation, right? Anyone remembers how can I run a render? Go to render, right? And you remember that? How does that look? How does that icon look? You actually go to the menu. Yeah, I feel same here, right? So I'm on the render tools. It's this blue sphere, or I guess we can try typing render, right? And it starts this process. Okay, you know, and it whips out an image. You know, it should be fairly quickly, right? So again, when you guys will start thinking of this in terms of your project. Okay. Oh, okay. So I have a 3D model. I follow. Good. I know how to set up my front, top, right, left views. Good. I follow. I have added materials. We talked about adding materials. Good. Right. I can produce a rendering, right, by going to render. Right. The render, and then saving the image, and then we'll call this, you know, maybe front 2 just for right now, and then we save it. Okay. Now, when I talked about renderings, and most likely when an instructor, you know, is talking about, hey, give me a rendering, or when you want to produce a render, it's not necessarily the render preview right here. It's not the render visual stuff. It helps, okay, and it will get us by many times. Those times that it's a desk grid, or, you know, it's the middle of a project that, you know, we're not still sure about how everything's going to look, and you just want to discuss something with someone, you can, again, do a view, capture to file, or to file or to clipboard, and you can export an image. But if you look at this at my screen right now, it's not very accurate. It's not really how it should, because there's actually a surface right there, which is that glass. You cannot really see it. You guys remember that we actually had 3 volumes? You cannot really see it there either, right? So this is a preview. It's pretty good. You know, it really helps us. But remember, what I actually want to do is start exporting images like these ones, right? So let me see if I can minimize this right here. Maybe move my stuff over here a little bit, and then maybe put them side by side so that we can compare them. Okay, this is the same model like here on my screen, guys. Right? So and we have it represented 2 ways. Okay, so to the left is the render preview, the visual, the preview that we see right there on our Rhino software. To the right is an image that not only have I set up the materials and set up the view, but I have gone ahead and render it. I'm gonna start it. I'm not gonna leave it running. All right, and whenever this is done, I hit save, give it a name. I end up with an image like this one. Notice now I'm on the, what is this called? I guess Photos, or the Windows photo preview. Huh? What's that? Photos, right? Windows Photos or whatnot. I'm not inside of Rhino. This is now a file, right? These are now files right here that I have on the folder like that. It's very simple concept, but does everyone follow? I mean, yeah, right. I mean, because again, it can be, well, what do you mean it's already a render view? Why do I have to render another view? Okay, so there's that. So that's the first part, right? When I talk about it's a render image with project materials, that's that. We just did that, right? And we do that for our top view. We do that for our 4 design elevations. Okay, so we come back here. We do now the right. Right, so you can now zoom. The best, I would advise you to select everything, right, when you're gonna run a render. Select everything, and then you go to standard tab right here on the top left, and then you go to zoom selected. Right, zoom selected right here. You click, and then it zooms to the size of your screen, rather, of your window, and it nicely centers it for you. And again, don't be deceived, because there's actually an object right there, which is the base, right, the glass base, and there should be another figure hiding behind some of these other guys right there, which is the glass one right there. Okay, so I can hit render right here. I think I'm on the right view, and I'm going to create 2 so that I can talk about alignment, that alignment that I'm talking about on the requirements. Okay, so it's running. It should be fairly, you know, straightforward, this rendering in terms of the content, the materials, the lighting. There's nothing, you know, drastic about it. Okay, so it's running, and again, these are the images that you're going to be using to lay out your boards. Okay, so as soon as this is done, and again, it does give you an estimate right there, 96% done. It's not reliable at all most of the time, right? I mean, it just bounces backing up, right? It says that it's a second reminding about like 5 seconds ago, right? So don't wait standing up, just relax. So okay, so we have one image right there, save as. Okay, now I have my front view. I'm just gonna call this right. Okay, so we save it, and we save it like that. Okay, so let's go now to, let's say, Illustrator. I'm gonna open a new board right here, just so we can start placing images and show you guys the difference in terms of this method, and it's just the method of visualizing drawings. Okay, so while this opens, all right, let's go back to our views. Okay, remember, how do I change the material of a layer? Correct, right? So that's why I expanded this menu bar right here to the right. We have this column right here that says material, and it tells us, right, there's a plaster for the layer 1, gem for layer number 2, metal, plastic, and glass, and those match all of these objects right here. Okay, so I'm going to set up our board. All right, file, new. What is the requirements for a board in terms of setup? 24 by 36, correct. Now, is this portrait or landscape? Portrait, right? And again, I'll add that on our slide before I upload this. So 24 by 36 portrait, right? We hit create, and again, I can go to file, place, and just a little bit of a recap for everything that we've been doing in the semester. And so project number 4, final, make 2D. Okay, so I'm gonna start with the front view. Okay, and I click place. Okay, we have that image right there. Okay, now let's look at this image, because let's see how accurate is it. Right? Let's see how accurate this image is. Okay, something that you're gonna start seeing in renderings. It depends on your lighting and your angle. Is how they actually look. Right? What do I mean? Right? Let's look at this form right here. Right? This yellow one, or you know, the blue one. Okay, so can we tell exactly how it looks three-dimensionally? Not really, right? I mean, why? There's no shading, right? What else? Yes, Sarah? There's no depth, right? I think that's the correct, you know, that's the best way to put it, right? There's no depth. You can kind of make up stuff, right? I mean, that helps, right? I mean, this edge right here, why? Correct. That's really good, Victor. All right, so if I go to the 3D model, it's like, hey, this object right here is made up of this larger bottom portion, and then this top part right here is just the chimney or something like that. All right. Now, if I look right at this, the purple one, right? I mean, this plane right here, these planes, they are not on the same plane as those right there. However, on this image, how does it look? Like they are on the same plane, right? There's actually no division right here. There's no break. I cannot tell, right, what's further behind or what's not. So that's where this method is helpful. Okay, so it's very simple. But again, the process goes like this. Okay, you have to go into the view that you're trying to export. What kind of view are we trying to export right now? We're doing the front view. Okay, so again, this is a two-part process. It's an image and lines, and even right here we have it on the presentation, right? We have a rendered image with materials, and then the second part, it's called the make 2D lines overlaid. Okay, follow me so that we can see what I mean by that. So make sure that you set up your elevation correctly, right? We're talking about orthographic elevations. That means it's the top, front, left view. And I repeat that because even sometimes we still get, right, that, you know, I mean, like, you know, Munoz, here's my elevation, right? That. Kind of, right? But this drawing, what does this drawing has that we discussed that elevations don't have? Well, by its nature, in terms of drawing them, the depth, right? So this is, what kind of drawing is actually this one right here? Huh? It's an eye level, but it's a perspective. So it's an elevation in perspective, but it's not an orthographic elevation. What is the difference, Munoz? I'll show you what the difference is, right? I mean, again, is this, again, for lack of a better word, flatness. That's what gives you an orthographic elevation, and that's what we're trying to represent. Okay, so again, make sure that you're on your preset views. Now, the way that, again, we set this up, we just select our objects that we want to draw, zoom select it, and then we type the command make 2D. Make 2D. That's the command right there. Enter. We select the objects that we want to draw, which are all of the objects. All right. Enter. And then it brings up this dialog box. Right. For right now, let's see. We want to do our view, which is our front. Object properties. Maintain source layers. That's fine. Right. Hidden lines might be very helpful for some of the projects that you guys are doing. I'll show you guys right now. If you actually look at the little icon right here, that's a preview, right? Look, if I press hidden, show hidden lines, notice, do you guys see that those dashed lines came in? Right. So again, that's sort of an exercise that you guys have probably done in Studio One or Intro. I kind of how to show hidden lines. So there's that really nice feature right here that you can actually draw those, Rhino draw those for you, right there, those hidden lines. I'm going to turn them off for right now. And then for right now, we'll leave all the settings as they are, and we hit OK. Now, notice that it populated this layers right here to the right with this make 2D layer and a bunch of sub layers. Because I haven't clicked on anything yet, if I go to my top view, notice that there's a selection, okay? There's something yellow right there. It's what the software just produced. The first thing that I want you guys to do, once you have done the make 2D, select your objects and enter, is type group. Group, enter, and then now you can move those lines to the side. Okay? And what did we get? What did we get? A drawing, right? The outline of that object. And what's interesting about that is that it's flat. I mean, that is it, right? I mean, it's a make 2D. So if you have taken freehand drawing, you know, or you will be taking, right? I mean, when you know, ask you, okay, let's, I don't know, here on campus, right? I mean, go outside, you know, draw me a, you know, an elevation, or draw me a building perspective. That's basically what the software is doing for you, right? It whipped out a 2D drawing out of a 3D model. Yeah? Impressive or not so impressive? It's pretty impressive. Yeah, it should be. It's pretty good. But we'll see. But wait, guys, there's more. There's even more. Okay? So let's do that one. So we just did our front view. Let's try our right one. And notice that it doesn't matter if you're on shaded or render mode. I can type make 2D. Right? Select the objects that you want to draw, which is everything, except for actually the ones that we just created, but that's okay. All right, so it's all of those right here, and then right click. These ones we just leave them as they are. We hit OK. And again, before you click on anything, because right now it's being selected, okay, I double click, go to my top view. By default, they are sent to your origin, which is the 0, 0 coordinate, right? And they're there, right? They're yellow. Again, what do I want to type? Group. right? Group, and then I can move them out of the way, right? And I have that view. Now there are some lines missing. Why? Right? It's not necessarily because they are glass, but it's because they are on the glass layer, right? And what color is that? White. Okay, so again, I just want to show you guys that it is there. Right, so if I type appearance, and then we go to colors, change our white background maybe, right? Okay, and then there they are. Okay, so just wanted to show you that they are there, except that they're on the glass layer, which you guys were correct, or the layer number 5, which has the glass material, but it also has a white layer as a color. Okay, so let me change this back. I think it helps me see a little bit better. Can everyone see? Okay, except for what you cannot see. Okay, good. Now it doesn't only just work with the you know, your elevations. I can create any view. Right, let's say that I now want to do maybe something a little bit more interesting, maybe something like that, or maybe a view like that. Okay, let's say that I want to draw this. Okay, something very helpful to do and know how to do is to set up your views. Think about it this way. Any of you guys into photography? A little bit. Yeah, I mean, nowadays everyone is. So think about using a tripod, right? Setting up your phone, right? And marking that spot where you place your tripod so that you can come back and take the same photograph from the same place or the same angle at a completely different time. It's kind of challenging, right? I mean, you can place the tripod on the same place. You can place the camera or mount it exactly, but to get the same angle back as you did, let's say a couple of days before, right? It takes some tweaking, right? You have to kind of like be messing with it, right? I mean, that it's correctly aligned. Well, to avoid that, here in Rhino, we can actually save our views. What do I mean? If I click right here, go to set view, right? These are all of our standard views right here. But if you go to name views, right? I already created 2, and you hit on this little button right here that says save as. I'm gonna give this a different name, right? I mean, I'm gonna name this class perspective. Hit OK. Notice that it gave me that view right here, but this one right here. But now if I rotate, I do whatever I want to do, and then I want to capture exactly that same view, rather than being here playing, you know, trying to adjust it, I can just go again to my same views right here, set view, and then you'll see that under name views, I have the class perspective, which is what I just created. And it's a way to always be able to go back to that original image. And this is very, very important when you're working on more elaborate renderings and more elaborate projects, especially for studio. Think about it this way, right? I mean, I guess when you're trying to photograph something, you, as a photograph by nature, you cannot photograph all of it. So you pick its best angles, right? I mean, you pick. So you're going to photograph a room, or you're trying to sell something, or your car, for example, you're trying to sell a car, you can only do so many photographs, right? So you want to capture some interesting parts or interesting features of whatever you're photographing. So as an artist that is trying to paint a landscape, you actually should set up your views very, very early on, so that you're always working on the same view. I don't know if that kind of like you know, registers right now with the importance that it should, but trust me, setting your views early on the project, it's a big time saver, okay? Because you always will be producing the same angle, the same perspective, rather than being in a little bit tweaked. And then later you add shadows and lighting, and things don't look the same. If I start, let's say, if I do a render preview like that, look at the tones right here as I rotate, right? They move with me, right? So things start changing according to what angle you look at them, okay? So long story short, set your views, okay? Now let's go back to making 2D, right? Because I have now set up my view, and I can type now make 2D, select the objects that I want to make 2D. This object that you see right here in the top, that's a light. Okay, so don't be thrown off it, and I'm not selecting it. We haven't talked about lighting or anything. I think I used the lights class. Many asked about them, but if you're wondering what those are, that's a light. So I'm not selecting that. So right click, the same menu pops up. We hit OK. The first thing that I want to do, which viewport do I see the drawing that I just generated? Top view, all right, the top viewport. All right, and then I want to do what when I have my drawing? Group it. All right, so group, enter, and then I'm gonna move it to the side now, right? And these are all the drawings that I have generated so far, right? And again, they look three-dimensional. That's the idea. They're giving us a three-dimensional object in 2 dimensions, so they are flat. Okay, so good so far. Questions so far? Okay, guys. So that's our second part. Yes, Diego.
For example, what if when we're lining them up, you said to line them all up on the map, what if you have some landscape and some portrait?
You as in photographs?
Yes.
That's okay. That's
Make sure
that they line up. Yeah. Yeah. So the important thing is that they line up, and I'll show you guys what I mean by that line up in a second. Okay. So going back to our guy right here. So we have our rendered image, and we did our make 2D lines. Now it's a matter of putting them together in our boards. Okay. So let's do that. The way that we do that is by exporting the line work. Okay, so what do I mean? I select one of the views. In this case is the front view, the front make 2D. I'm going to type export. Export, enter. Okay, guys, so this is a few steps to follow right here. So we're trying to export this as lines to manipulate them and edit them on what software? Illustrator, correct. Thank you, Victor. All right. So under save as type, which is right here, I don't know if you see my cursor, right? I should actually select what? AI, Adobe Illustrator. All right. So I can select that format, AI. Notice that all of those files popped up. Not really sure from where, but I'll go back to our folder right here, media, projects, and make 2D. So now I'm gonna label or call this again front view, front, and I'll call it right now front lines export, just so that I can be even more specific as to what this file is. Okay, so I hit save. This window pops up. For right now, we'll just do OK. And again, nothing happened per se right there, but if we actually go to the folder, right, where I'm saving everything, you see that I now have an AI file. I'm going to go ahead and double click on it. All right, and I get that. We should be able to get its layers. There we go. Here, this layers right here. So I don't know why there's so many, but there we go, right? So there's some red right there. Hide it. The white one, we're not going to be able to see it, but that's okay because we're going to change all of these colors, okay? So I'm going to select that object right there. I'm going to copy paste it, right? Control copy, or we can do to edit, copy, and then we go to this original file, which is going to be your board, right? And let me actually make a copy of this so we can see both at the same time. Okay, so I have that right there, and then I paste it right here. Okay, and now I just need to place it on top. But as you can see, the lines are the same color as the object, right? So what do I need to do? I change the lines to black. Okay, so we select all of the lines at the same time. We remember about the fill and the stroke. So we don't really need a fill because we're not using we're not coloring the inside of these lines, but we just override the stroke color for all of the lines to be black, right? And we get that right there. Okay, so let's just do an inventory right here of what we have. So we have two images. I'm going to use one to show you what the difference is with without lines. I have the lines that we have exported from Rhino right here, and we have the layers that are part of this drawing, right? As I turn on and off those lines. Now, the last part, quote unquote, right there, the last part that I need to do is to put or place this on top of this over here. Now, as you can see, what happens? It's not what? It's not the same size, right? What is it? Is it smaller, bigger? The lines are smaller. So the next thing that I need to do is scale it while you hold shift. Very important that you're holding shift so that you don't deform this, and you try to match them as close as possible, right? So again, I'm holding shift, I'm pulling from its corner edges or vertices, and I'm trying to place this object now right on top of the original one, right? And it seems that it could grow a little bit more, right? And again, I can use my cursor, right, my arrows to move it around a little bit, right there, and place it as such. Julio, do you have a question? Oh, a statement. Okay, yes, please share. Oh, yeah. That's another very helpful one, right? I guess what Julio's talking about. You know how I'm pulling from the corners right there, and this corner remains locked. And was it Shift and Alt? Shift and Alt? Yeah. Shift and Alt together, though, it gives you this kind of dynamic scaling that scales from the center. It anchors it from the center rather from one of the corners right there. That's very helpful as well. I need to use it more often. That's the problem when you learn this and use it for so long. You have those not so good ways of doing things. So there we go. Okay, so the idea though is to scale it up as close as possible so that it matches the objects right on the back. So we're doing that right there, and it's a little bit of a game right here in terms of getting it right. Oops, and there we go. Okay, so I have that now. I'm going to remove this frame right here on the back. That was just part of the main 2D. Actually, you can there's a feature to remove that. But the idea, and let's see, does this work better if we right? So we can see them right here. Place them over here. So can we see the difference? A little bit, right? So let me see, can I lock the image layer? There we go. Because if not, let's say that you're like, I don't know, Munoz, like I don't really see, right? I mean, the difference. Well, perhaps if we bring this stroke, right, thicker, right, maybe it becomes a little bit more evident. Of course, talking about technical elevations, there's still some line weights that we should kind of be concerned with. Right, fixing, right, certain lines should be thicker than other ones, but this is the start in creating some very dynamic views in terms for your elevations. And again, sometimes when we're a little bit on a time crunch and we don't have time to set up all of our line types, having colors and shadows can help us communicate that idea of depth. Okay, now I talked about alignment. Right. Basically what I mean by that, right, is as you export your images, and again, let me see how does this look. Actually, I'm just curious if I select my objects, right. I don't even have to do a render view style. I can just hit render from right here. So again, I selected everything. I went to zoom selected, and then I hit render. All right, I have that right there. It's running. Let's see how long it takes. But while that's going, I do have another image. So I'll go to File, Place. Now we should be careful doing this because I'm running a rendering. I'm also running Illustrator, and I'm also recording. So you can see my laptop starts kind of like become slower. So just be patient. Don't do drastic moves. You don't want anything to crash and lose any data. But I do have my front and my right view. I also want to bring my top view, which is what I'm rendering right now. But I can start with these two images. Right, hit either place it, click. Right, and what I mean by alignment, if you press Control R on Illustrator, that brings out your what? Rulers, right? Control R brings out your rulers. And if I click drag, get a guide, basically it means that the red object has the same height in all of its views. Right? So I bring those two guides and I place the image, let's say from this bottom edge on that guide that I gave myself, right? Like that, which again, it corresponds to this bottom part of the image to the left. Now let's see how the top is working, and it's pretty close, right? This red edge should be aligning with this cyan guide line that I have there. How do I do that? The same way, just scale it up. Make sure, very important, that you hold shift, place your cursor on the handle, and then scale it up a little bit, and there we go. All right, so now they are matching on the same height. Yes, Nick? How did I make the guide? All right, very simple. So again, the first thing is that you gotta have your rulers out. So those are to the left and to the top. You see those rulers right there? That's Control R. Once you have those, you just click and drag from the ruler itself, and you see that, I don't know if you can see, there's a very light line on my cursor, and if I release my cursor, it brings that blue line right there. And you need to move it. You just place your cursor on top of it again, and you just drag and place it where you want, because as they should be lining up on height, they should also be lining up in the x-axis. What do I mean? That if I bring another guide to this edge of the red object, right, this red edge should be lining up with this one over here. So what do I do? Very simple. Select this from the objects that I want to move, and except for my guide though, right, and move that there. Whoops, and let's bring my image as well with me. Oh, they're locked. Right. So locked image. Now we select it. Now we select it. Okay, now we select it. I guess there we go. It was locked, so that's why it wasn't moving with me. And those, how do I get rid of those guides? I can just select them and hit delete. Okay, so that's what I mean by alignment, guys, and that's also very important architecturally speaking. And I talked about this when you guys were developing your orthographic elevations, that again, this height should align, right? So I have that top view, it aligns right there. Not only that, but this volume, for example, that height should align with its right view, right? So again, you start making these relationships, right? It's like, hey, there's a big, big but short object right here, this blue on the front view. Okay, how does it actually look on the right view? Oh, is this object right there? So it's actually very short, or what's the opposite of shallow? Huh? Deep. So shallow is not deep. What's the opposite of deep? Shallow? Okay, so shallow. A little bit of confusion, rather. But I guess I want to show that it's not that deep, right? You see that it's really long, but it's not that deep. And I'm talking about this object right here, this little blue one, and I can see that as how things are aligning, okay, with those guidelines. So shallow versus deep. Okay, guys. But again, what am I missing on this drawing right here? The lines. I'm missing the lines. Okay, guys. Oh, so our rendering came out pretty not good, right? Those are those hot spots right there. Those are my lights, so that's not good. But I'll take it for right now. I'll save it. I'll just call this ugly top. Ugly top view. Okay, for the record, it's not a good top view, right? Because those are my spotlights, and that's a glass surface, well, allegedly a glass surface, so we're getting those glows right there. But we close this right here so that you guys can help me generate this view, for example, right? So actually, do we already have it? I think we do, right? Where we have it, but here, you guys help me. All right, just as a review right here, what is the steps in order to generate the Make2D? Yes, right? So we type Make2D, right? And then select the objects that you're trying to draw. All right, select those right there, and then right-click, enter, spacebar, right? And on this view right here, just click OK, right, for right now. Again, I go to my, and then how do I select it now? Top view, and it's right here, and then I type group. All right, I move it to the side, and then how do I bring it into Illustrator? Okay, I type export, enter. Select objects to export. They are grouped, and that's what's nice about it, that I can just click right on one anywhere, right, as long as it's within the object, and there I don't have to worry about leaving any little lines behind that sometimes happen. So press enter when done. I am done. Now, what are the three important things to watch out for in this window right here? Yes, right. So that is an Illustrator file that you give it a name, right? So I think this was now the right view, right lines, and then your location, right? The right folder, and it is on the right folder. We hit save, and then we hit OK. Okay, we go back to the folder where you just saved that. We have the original one, which was front, and then we have right lines. We double click on right lines. It opens on Illustrator, and again, I can just change all of these lines on as soon as it opens, right? So I select everything, double click on its stroke, bring it to black. Whoops, that's not black. That's the opposite of black. That was white, and we bring it to black, and we have that. Okay, so copy paste it, you got it, right? So I can select this, control copy, right, and then paste right here. And I like that idea of holding alt as well, right? And we do this right here, this little number, and I think I might have gone too big. So I always like to pick a corner, right? Any corner as a reference. Right, and then I go to the somewhat opposite of it, and then I just shrink it from there. And sometimes I need to go back just one more time to the other one. And sometimes it's just a matter of moving it with your arrow like that. So I just moved it once or twice, and it should line up correctly. Okay, now let's see what's happening right here. Now some lines are not showing. Why? Correct, right? So I'm not really sure, Sarah, what are you gonna say? The photo, right? So I can right click on it, and then, right? Right? So range, send to back, but it's not working. No, it's not really the forward or backwards. What is it? Layers, right? So let's see where this image, right? So that image right now is on this layer right here. But if I actually grab it, I need to bring it to the layer number 1, which is all the way to the bottom. You guys see that? Okay, Gina, following? All right. Okay, and now we have that right there. And again, I just moved it a little bit to the right, and you see, I mean, there's still work to do, and you'll learn this. There's a digital media tool that you'll be taking at some point in your career. There'll be studios where I'll further expand on this, but you see how pretty this looks. How nice it looks. You have the different tones of red right here. You have those bold lines outlining the objects. Again, you have this other tone right here. So again, it really starts communicating what the object can look like. And again, it's not the same, right, to have them. So again, it's a complement thing, right? I mean, you have the colors, you have the depth on the rendered, but the lines give you that definition. And they give you that crisp, sharp edges. From here on, you can become very creative. I mean, those lines for right now, they are black, but they can be any color. The background can start being other colors. So the possibilities are wide right here. So the last thing that I wanted to show you guys, I'm not going to do the 2D of the top view, but I do want to bring in file, place, the top view, the ugly top view. So we can place this guy right here. And then we'll bring this smaller. Okay, so we bring that object there. Okay. Now, what do I mean by aligning them? Well, again, the same way that, again, I'm bringing a guide, I'm snapping it to this end right there, to my bottom left. I bring another guide out, place it right here, because that should be the edges of this hexagon. So that means that I need to blow this thing up a lot, right? A lot. So that it fits exactly within that. Okay, so we have that right there, maybe even a little bit more. Okay, let me move these guys over here so I can move this one over here. Okay, so that again, if I bring another guide, right, and I place it there, it projects. When sometimes, one of the instructors or someone says, hey, those lines, see, project those lines. Right, so that means that edge, right, projects to this elevation drawing, and they line up correctly. Right, so anywhere that we place this guy right there, it matches on the bottom. Okay, now there's something about that ugly top image, right? That again, it's ugly. We stated that, but part of its messiness as well is that gray background. Okay, now you guys know how to maybe get rid of it, simply on Illustrator. Yeah, right. The clipping mask. Good, Julio. Okay, so let's do that real quick. I just want to show you guys how fast it is, how easy. So I select my pen tool, so I press P as in pen. Right, I trace the outline of what I want to keep. And if it's not 100% accurate, you can always go back and change it. So don't worry. So, and I draw that. Make sure that you end what you started. So you close it. So I drew an outline, and it's not that I want it to be shown, right? For that is my Make 2D, but I use the clipping mask tool. Okay, you guys remember how does that one work? Yes. So I just drew it. So I have my outline, which I drew with my pen, and then what? Control 7, right? Something with Control 7. Hey, Julio. right click. I've never tried with a right click actually. Make clipping mask. Oh, okay, you can. Right. So the fast way, I mean, I don't know. For me, it's fast, right? I mean, select the tracing, the boundaries, which is true. Hold Shift and select the image, and then Control 7, and that gets rid of that background right there. Let's try what Julio mentioned right there. So let's say select the outline, hold Shift to select the image, right click, make clipping mask. Again, a few clicks more, a few clicks less, shortcuts or not shortcuts, you know, everything helps. And then of course, I would generate its right. So from here, I would do its make 2D, right? Select its objects on 2D, enter, OK, right? Group, enter, and then it gives us that. And then again, there's a white layer right there. That's where we cannot see it. And then repeat all of that process right there so that we can actually now place it on our board. Okay. So I'll go ahead and file. Actually, I don't need to save. Questions on this? So this has been the, how do we call this? What have we done? Set up our elevations, right, which are in our top view, which are our orthographic views, okay? And then we've used, again, oops, not Spotify, but, right? We have used a rendered image with materials, and then we have used make 2D lines as an overlay, okay? Let's minimize this right here. All right, so we have added that. Let's see if I have some figures readily available. Maybe I think that was from project 3. Different people silhouettes. This is the file that I uploaded for you guys. Let's see, is there like perfect, right? Little kid right there. Bring this fella over here. So, and this is the importance, right? I mean, maybe even I'll copy this right here. All right, so we have kid smaller than objects. What happens now if kid, right, becomes larger? Right, so it changes everything. It changes, you know, I don't know, this line got moved. Right, and again, remember, I mean, that's too deep, that's too much. Right, so we can actually bring down its opacity. Right, that arm is probably because it's what on back of the image. See, so okay, a board fell over here. All right, so that looks kind of weird. We'll have to trim the background there. But I guess also something to keep in mind is you can actually clip this guy. What do I mean? This is what I mean, that you may not need the entire body of that kit right there. So we can actually draw a box on top of it. Hold Shift to select the silhouette, and we use Control 7 to clip it. Maybe, I don't know, how does that look? That look weird. All right, and then I can actually edit the clipping mask. All right, double click on it, and then change this right there. All right, and there we go. Okay. So we have that. Maybe if we remove the opacity from our model. All right, and we give it maybe a lighter color. There we go. And we have something like that. And just careful with these little pieces right here. You might want to group stuff. You see, I left sort of that path right there. That should go right there. It's actually more than one. Okay, well, careful with those. So anyway, you have some idea or some sense of scale right there in terms of adding silhouettes. Okay. Questions, Sarah? Yeah, you mean for the figure? Yeah, yeah. I'll bring another one right here. Where were they? Let's bring mom. Is that mom? Sure. So maybe we'll bring. Alright, so we have this one right here. And what's neat about this is that, I mean, I use the rectangle, right? And I can draw a form on top of her. It doesn't matter the color, the fill, the stroke, nothing really. But then again, I select the object that helps me to clip, hold on shift and select the object that I'm clipping and press Control 7, and it gives me that. But I can also, right, select, copy this. I can draw anything. It can be a circle. Right? So it could be kind of that right there. Select the clipping object, Control 7, it gives me that kind of round bottom right there. Right, this is this one. It has that, and then that I just changed the fill color. Oh, right. But when you're gonna edit them, once you have clipped them, make sure that you double click on it, and then you select the object, and then you can change its attributes. So, that. Yeah. Okay. Good. Good questions, guys. What else? Nick. Oh. 1 second, Diego. Nick. The scale figure? A few. It just really depends on the project, the scale. Because if all the elevations are going to be, very tiny and a huge person, maybe just one person is enough in one of the elevations. It all depends on the layout and how things are looking on the board, and that's kind of what I want to see when I see your test print. And like, you know what? I think we can fit another scale figure right here, or let's get rid of this one over here. So for right now, just try your best when you're laying this thing out. Give it your best criteria, and then when we're reviewing this, the test print, we'll just mark that. Diego?
For the lines, is there a way to just select one, and that way you can work with the thickness of it, or is it all?
Yeah. You're talking about these lines right here? Yeah. So there's still individual line segments, and yeah, that's the best practice. So for example, these lines right here that are on the back, for example, maybe it should be a little bit lighter. So maybe I can send them to a 1. I think that worked. Kind of did it. Oh, I guess I have lines over lines. I'm not sure why. I created a copy. Maybe let's try it over here. This one's right here. So I can select those lines individually and can maybe bump them up. But again, just be careful to select all of the ones that you're trying to select. So yeah, those lines are in the independent line segments. Okay, guys. So I want to also cover that exploded axon, but I think I like to do it in different videos. Right? So I'm gonna stop this one. I'm gonna save it, and let's maybe take a 5-minute break, 10-minute break, so you can maybe stretch. Right? I know this is very, very simple stuff, but it just requires, again, your attention, and with the video you'll be able to follow it very, very easily. But I do want to cover the axon. That will be the last thing that I want to cover, at least for this class. But let's do that. So while I'm gonna stop this, I'm gonna save this, make sure that I have this file, and let's come back in 5 minutes or so.